everyone, and welcome back to Women Power Impacts, a podcast where we discuss women doing impactful work in nonprofits and community organizations for other women in marginalized communities. Today, we're speaking with Chloe Kinnahan from the organization Open Field. Chloe, go ahead and introduce yourself, and thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much. Hi, my name is Chloe Kinnahan, and I'm the Youth and Girls Program Manager at Open Field. Like you said, I've been there for about 5 years, and I'm really excited to talk about my work.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So we'll jump right in. First, to get an overview of the organization, what does Open Field and the Girls Program in particular do? So some of your projects, the different kinds of work that you do as an organization.
Yeah, so Open Field is a sports-based youth development organization. These types of organizations are becoming more popular, not only in the U.S., but all across the world. So we use soccer as a tool for social emotional learning, life skills, and post-secondary success. So we have a few different programs under that scope. We have our youth program. We have a high school league called Future Forward, and we also partner with the community college here, CCAC, to run their men's and women's club soccer teams. So kind of depending on the age, there's a different focus, but really just trying to use soccer, which is a universal language, as a way to support youth. And we focus mainly on the immigrant and refugee demographic here in Pittsburgh, although anybody who's welcome in our programming. And for us, the biggest thing is providing access and safe spaces to people who may not otherwise be able to access those spaces.
Yeah, I love that. And what is your specific role within the organization? And you mentioned that you'd been there for 5 years and the Youth and Girls Program Director, but kind of how did you arrive there? And then what work do you find yourself doing on a basis?
Yeah, so I took kind of a untraditional path. I started school right after I graduated high school, which was in 2012. Found out it wasn't really for me, the place I was at. So I took a little break, worked for a number of years in the service industry. And then I went back to school at Duquesne University for political science and women and gender studies. And while I was there, I took a class that included a community engagement requirement, which you have to do, any student at Duquesne has to do. And I was actually really passionate about mine. It was within the political science department in a class on policy on immigration. And we partnered with an organization here in Pittsburgh as well called Arise. They also focus on work with immigrant and refugee students. And so we basically worked as tutors at their after-school club. The kids that participated actually came to Duquesne, so Duquesne hosted the club. But yeah, I found that I really enjoyed working with young people. I had kind of always worked with young people in my family, but never really on that scale. So I worked with them. I really enjoyed it. It was great. Then I graduated college in 2019 in the winter. And then very shortly after, as we all experienced, COVID happened. So 2020 was really a year of figuring it out for me. I had all these plans that obviously didn't go through. And at some point during that year, I saw a post on Instagram, actually, about Open Field, just through Arise's story. And I was like, this is awesome. I've played soccer my whole life. I didn't play in college, but it was something that I always regretted, like kind of leaving behind. So I guess on a personal level, I was trying to figure out something to do, as most people were. And on a professional level, I was still kind of searching for what my place was. So I actually signed up for Open Field as just a volunteer, basically just looking for a way to get out of my house. And then I just really kind of tapped into it. And my boss, Justin Forzano, who's the CEO, was looking for someone to coach the girls. And So I said, I'll do it. And it kind of just grew and grew and grew from there. So I really started by signing up as a volunteer, started the season as a part-time staff coach in 2021, and just kind of built up from there.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And it's very cool because I think it's very important that like the unconventional path, I think, is like talked about a lot, because I think, especially as a high schooler, and I'm applying to colleges this year, and everyone's like, it's a lot of pressure. So I'm glad that it's like you can find something that you're incredibly passionate about and it worked out for you. And that was really cool. And so, yeah. And you mentioned, so you coached and you volunteered and then you coached. And now as the Girls and Youth Program Director, are there other aspects of your job besides coaching that you find yourself doing?
Yes. The job grew and grew and grew and grew. So the main components of my job currently are to plan the programs. So anything from logistics to kind of more what we're doing in the programs. So I actually wrote a curriculum for Open Field. It's like a weekly curriculum to guide coaches. I also am responsible for recruiting and training all of our volunteers. So our program, as many nonprofits are, could not happen without our volunteers. So not only do I find myself like building these relationships with the youth and their families, but also with these awesome people in the Pittsburgh community who like want to be a part of it. So volunteer recruitment and training. I'm also responsible for bringing in all of the equipment for Open Field. So we're largely reliant on equipment donations. I've sought out a couple of partnerships with larger organizations that can provide us more equipment. So really the youth themselves, the program, the volunteers, and the equipment. And then also just, general like community engagement. The type of work we do, it doesn't really look like a typical soccer league. We do a lot of work getting out into the community, getting to know our families, many of which who, we may not speak the same language. So really everything I do in my job is about relationship building. It just might be with different audiences.
Yeah. I really like that. And as you mentioned, the equipment stuff, actually, that's how I came in contact with Open Field, because my school, for our Global Education Week this past year, it was all like sports focused for our school this year. And it was like the unity in sports and stuff. So we actually did a fundraiser for Open Field and like equipment and stuff. So that's actually how I heard about the organization the first time. And then I looked more into it because it was really cool.
Amazing. Yes, I remember that week, and it was so exciting to work with all of you and see all the students. Yeah, and I guess that's kind of the youth program part of my work. And then there's the girls specific part of my work, which is really kind of came before the youth program manager role. I got into the work because I was really passionate about working with girls specifically, because I saw in my own experience and like the experience of others how many obstacles girls have to overcome just to be on the field and be confident on the field and get the same treatment that the boys are getting. So before I was the youth program manager, I was really focused on coaching the older girls, and that grew into like a management role as well. So I still am their coach and their mentor, but we also try to do like off-field activities like college visits. We've done dance workshops with a local dance company, fitness-focused things, really anything that they're interested in that can kind of build their skill set, even if it's not directly soccer related. And it's really kind of become like a little family on the team, which is really cool.
Yeah. I love that. And kind of like in that vein, like how do you reach people who may not have heard of Open Field and like these like people from the immigrant and refugee populations who you might be like wanting to be in the program? How do you reach them? Do you go into schools? How does that work?
Yeah. So before I started at Open Field, my boss, Justin, had partnered with JFCS, which is a local resettlement agency. And they're one of the bigger ones, them and Hello Neighbor. So pretty much anybody who's coming into the city as an immigrant or a refugee has received some kind of services from these amazing organizations. And so he worked kind of hand in hand with them to figure out like where the best pockets are or where there's like concentrated pockets of people. And we found that there's a really big population of immigrants and refugees in Crafton Heights and in Northview Heights from varying different backgrounds. So when I came into the program, we already kind of had this basis of participants, and much of our programming takes place right next to Crafton Heights, so that it's super accessible for those folks. And from there, it's really just like word of mouth. The good thing about what we do using sport and soccer is that the kids already want to do it. They're like seeking this out. So it really comes organically with kind of that basis of participants. And then people bring their friends in, their family, their younger siblings. We see a lot of, for example, right now, there's all these older siblings in high school that I've been working with for 4 years. And now their siblings who were babies when I started are now 6 and they're old enough to start in our program. So it really kind of happens organically, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I love that. And I think kind of we talked about like how you reach people in the community, and you had kind of already touched on this a little bit already, but with like raising equipment and volunteering. But that was what I wanted to talk about. How can people in the community support your efforts? Like if you're a volunteer, what kind of work would you be doing? Would you be coaching? How does like doing an equipment fund work? Does it have to be through a school? All of those things.
Cool. Yeah. So the volunteers, I know I just said the participants are super easy to find. Volunteers take a little bit more thought, to convince people to spend their time working with us. So word of mouth, again, is really great. There's a strong soccer community in Pittsburgh. So I found that like once the word is out there, people are interested, people are into it. So I kind of like hit all these different channels, like soccer organizations, soccer leagues, but also universities, schools, clubs, partner organizations who can get the word out, all of that kind of thing. And then once people do apply to be a volunteer, they kind of have a quick chat with me. I get to know you a little bit. And it depends on the program that you're volunteering for, but our biggest need it would be our youth program and our high school program, Future Forward. So the main role of the volunteer there is generally coaching. We call our volunteers coach mentors because, your coach is not only your coach, hopefully they're a mentor as well. And we want to really drive that home. So once you're on as a volunteer, you're normally paired with another volunteer assigned to a team, and you coach that team. All of our volunteers are provided with our curriculum. So they have some guidance as to like practice structure, what drills or games are you doing, and especially guidance in how to like weave in the SEL. So they're provided with topics of the week and guiding questions and guiding answers to lead those discussions.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, that sounds fantastic because I was very curious as to like, obviously you coached as well and you were a volunteer at the beginning. So I was very interested. And I think you mentioned this before, but like soccer is kids already kind of want to do it and that's a draw to people. But is there another reason why you feel like soccer was such a good avenue to use? Like why soccer specifically as a sport of choice?
Definitely. I think soccer is the most universal sport. I always say it's a universal language. Even before I was working at Open Field, when I was a child and a teenager myself, I remember playing with people that we didn't speak the same language, but we could play soccer together. And you really can connect over a sport. I know that anyone who has ever played a sport has felt that kind of bond with your teammate or even somebody you only just met that plays a sport as well. So I think when we're looking at like the demographics that we're working with specifically, soccer is a place where they can find home, even if they're not home. We hear so many stories of, I've played soccer since I was born, pretty much. And it's something that they can carry from wherever their home is to their new home here in Pittsburgh. So it's just a really beautiful way to communicate and relate with somebody that you might not think you would.
Yeah. And along the same vein, why, soccer, but also like sports, like why do you feel they're so critical, especially for with young women and girls, as you mentioned, as part of the girls program? Obviously they're very important, but what do you feel is like the biggest thing that like being part of sports and like playing soccer teaches?
Yeah, I think so many things, but I think the biggest things are like confidence and like a team mentality. Team that includes teamwork and being supported by a team. I have seen the girls that I work with who are now, many of them sophomores, juniors, seniors in high school. I've seen them since they were in 5th grade or 4th grade or 6th grade. And so, I've seen them grow through that really hard time of middle school and now high school. And I can see that they feel supported by each other and supported by me. I can see that they feel like they are true athletes. I think it's important to provide a space where the girls are treated as seriously as the boys. Something that I noticed when I came into open field, and also like reflective of my own experience as an athlete, especially as an athlete who doesn't have the resources to pay to play at the club level or the transportation to get to that level. It can be hard to take yourself seriously and feel that confidence. So to be in a space where it's focused on girls, the coach has that mentality, and then little by little, the girls pick it up too and like support each other. I think when I first started at open field, I saw my very first day, really, I saw the boys come to the field in, their soccer gear, ready to play soccer, hopped on the field, got into a formation, clearly like knew exactly what they were doing. The girls came to the field in like skirts and flip-flops, and I'm like, oh, we got to get these girls some gear. We got to do this. And then we just start playing. And it's obvious to me that they knew how to play soccer. They knew how to get a soccer ball from point A to point B and all these maneuvers. But when it came to like offense, defense, game strategy, all these things that you need to be taught, they had no idea. And it wasn't their fault. It was because, the girls aren't seen as actual athletes and worthy of learning these things. They're just playing for fun. And then once they get old enough, they'll be over it. But for many of them, it's not a phase. They are athletes. They love this sport. And so once, we took the time to learn all of those things and those concepts, you could really see the difference. The first year I was with them, we played in the City Sports Futsal League. It's it's more competitive than probably any of them had played. And we lost every single game, but we had so much fun and we learned so much. And then the next year we went back, we played in the same league, mostly the same teams, and we made it to the semifinals. So it was really just like that for me is a very stark example of what happens when you believe in people and provide some of the foundational resources, and then, they grow the house themselves.
Yeah. And I absolutely love that because I'm not someone who has ever really done sports. Like I swam for a few years, but even that, I feel like that experience is very universal, like kind of no matter what space you're in, if you're a woman, if you're a girl, and it's like, you're not given that same level of like, okay, you're not supposed to take this as seriously, like focus on this. And so I've seen that even in like academics and like the other extracurriculars I do. So definitely like, but I think in sport, especially just like my friends who are athletes, I just like see it and I'm like, yeah, it's clearly so important. Obviously following the media, all of the success, but also all of the struggles female athletes face. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's something like 75% of girls drop out of sports at age 14. However, like a large percentage of women, of quote unquote successful women who are in like CEO positions, lawyers, doctors, things like that, largely report that they participated in sports. And I think it's a space where you can feel those bonds with other girls in a way that's like really, really precious and doesn't exist in many other spaces.
Yeah. And you kind of mentioned this playing in that futsal league, but do you like play against other schools in the area as like an open field team? Like, how does that work as well?
Yeah, so it looks a little bit different each season. In the winter, we play in the City Sports Futsal League. So that includes teams from schools, both in the city of Pittsburgh and around the region. I mean, anybody can participate in that league, but we're largely looking at schools. And then in the spring, we compete in our high school league, the Future Forward League, which Open Field hosts. But we bring in teams of youth from all around the city. So we started we just completed our second year of this league. And it's really great. It's kind of trying to extend what we do and having access to soccer to other parts of the city by working with our partner organizations to bring in those kids and those youth. One thing that we encounter a lot as a nonprofit, obviously, is, capacity, funding, transportation, staff capacity. So for years, we're like, we would love to bring, be able to have kids from other parts of the city. But it becomes a matter of, getting them there and all of this. So this league has been a really good way to do that. And we host the league. There's a boys division and a girls division. They're all there on the same day, but they're kind of separate. And it's every Saturday in the spring, and they spend half the day playing in the league against other teams. And then the other half of the day, they participate in like a post-secondary preparation workshop led by a partner. So whether that be, your options after college, how to do a resume, how to think about your finances, all those super fun things that, I'm sure you're thinking about as well right now. So,
Yeah.
And that's been a great space. I think that's been an interesting space to see the difference between boys and girls. The boys are very competitive. Like that's their top priority. The girls are competitive. However, they're very like relationship based. Like I saw the girls on my open field team create these awesome friendships with girls on the other teams. And by the end of the season, they're all like one big team, even though they're playing against each other. So it's a really unique space in that sense that I don't think a lot of other soccer leagues see, even, recreational leagues.
Yeah. I love that as well, especially the part about like post-secondary planning as well, which is like, it's so important. I think even for like refugee and immigrant communities, like coming in, it like becomes like such like a difficult thing. Cause like I've been here, like I've lived here my entire life and I still have like no idea what's happening half the time. So like, I think that's such a good aspect of it too, that I really liked. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, girl, I'm 30 and some of these workshops, I'm like, this is actually really helpful for me. Like, so yeah, it's awesome. And you can see the wheels turning in their head, and it's amazing that they can be sitting in that room with their teammates, with their friends. And for the open field girls specifically, some of them met when they came to this country, but some of them knew each other like living in refugee camps before they got here. Some of them are related. Some of them have been friends since they got here. So to see them being able to like kind of figure out these pieces of their next chapter together with the support of also mentors like myself and their other coaches and volunteers who have been around for a number of years is just really awesome. And I think it's something that when I look back on my teenage self, I had support. I'd been in this country my whole life, just like you said. But still, so many of these things, I'm like, wow, that is what is needed. So it's just really cool to see them growing.
Yeah. And kind of a similar or related question, has working as part of Open Field and even like the other organizations that like you volunteered for before, like Arise that you mentioned, has it changed your worldview in any way? Like, what are some new perspectives that you've gained, or just new ways that you see things after the work?
Yeah, totally. I mean, on a base level, like I got into this work because I'm a strong believer in humanity and that everybody should have the right to happiness, to joy, to resources, to health, to food, to support. And we live in a world where not everybody believes that. So I think that, if you do, do your piece in that. And this is my piece. This is where I feel strong. This is where I feel I can offer something. And I think something that like humbled me when I came in to like working in this environment was just understanding the difference in each culture and my, I guess, like feminist views that are, I would say very intersectional, but also very coming from like my place as a woman and as a white woman in America, understanding how to navigate those views of like, I believe girls and women should have equal opportunity, understanding how to navigate that within the cultures that we work in that may have different opinions, in a way that I'm still supporting the girls and their values and my values, but also those of the parents and of the family. That was a big thing. I think coming into it, something I thought about a lot was like the intersectionality of like, okay, I can relate to these girls based on being a woman and being a girl, but I also have to recognize my role in society as someone who was born here and be a white person. So I think when I came into it, I thought about that a lot. And then the ways that I thought about that expanded and grew as I worked within these cultures. I think I've had to just accept different views and navigate around the girls' needs and the girls' wants and kind of the situation that they're in. I guess, for example, a lot of the girls have a lot more household responsibilities at home. And, culturally, they will be given that responsibility. So sometimes it's a matter of, talking to parents and saying, hey, can your child come to this really great opportunity, whether it be a tournament or a college visit or something? And the response is, well, no, she has to stay home and take care of her siblings, and I have to respect that role, while I can still recognize the weight that's put on the girls there. And I think they recognize it too. So that's kind of a convoluted long answer, but I think it's just understanding the specifics of each culture, not just understanding, I'm working with different cultures. It's very much more nuanced than that.
Yeah, I absolutely love that insight. And obviously this podcast focuses a lot on intersectionality and a bunch of different identities and different sectors and areas, but that was very insightful. I really, really appreciate it.
Thanks.
And just like now to a couple of like kind of wrap up questions, almost like summarizing, and you probably have touched on what you love about your job, but what has been your favorite aspect of your role at Open Field over the years?
Wow. I think my favorite aspect is like just seeing the growth and the growth that comes with joy within the girls. Like as I mentioned before, I kind of have a 2-part role. And as the youth program manager, we have over 100 kids in our program, and I have some type of relationship with each and every one of them and care for them so much. But it's the girls who now are mostly high school girls that I've been really closely working with for these past few years. And so I think to see somebody go from sixth grade not really having like the resources in their brain, or their brain isn't developed enough yet to kind of like tackle certain problems or things like that, and to see those girls now at sophomores, juniors in high school, like working with younger people to tackle the same problems that they were working through, to see them like coming up in leadership roles, to see their confidence growing, like that's the most beautiful part of my job. I think it's fulfilling for me. Like I think a lot of people in nonprofits have a hard time like giving themselves their flowers, and that's something I have a hard time with too, because it's really not about me, it's about them. But like it is really awesome to see like a group of people that you've been with and kind of helped give these tools, take those tools even further than you could ever imagine, and use them to help others as well. I think it's just so fulfilling. And to see the group of girls that we have on our main like high school team have not always gotten along. There were a lot of different reasons why, whether they be cultural, tribal, personal, familial, or just, seventh grade girl stuff. To see them like being so close now and working together, not only on the field, but off the field, is just incredible. And I know that they're gonna, spread the same to others. So I think that's my favorite part of my job, just seeing the growth.
Yeah. And I think it's something that you can like visibly see over time, even if it doesn't feel like, and so I can imagine just how satisfying and like fulfilling it would be.
Yeah.
And so I guess this is usually the question I ask last to every guest on the podcast, but it's, what advice do you have for young women now? And you probably have a ton because you work with them all the time, but just any insights?
Yeah, totally. Don't be afraid to ask for help. You don't have to do it all on your own. I think one thing that I personally struggled with was, as a young woman, or younger woman, was like, if I'm gonna do this and like get credit for it, I have to do it all on my own. I have to do everything on my own. Like that idea of independence, which I think also comes from like our Americanized culture, really got in my head. And one other thing, kind of going back to a question you asked before and touching on this question as well, one other thing that I've really learned from the communities that I work with is the beauty of like communal society as opposed to independent society. So in the US, we're largely expected to be independent. In many of the cultures that I work with, it's more communal. Everybody in the family kind of has this role and works together, and not only in the family, but in the community. And so I think seeing that really solidified to me that things are much more successful, much better if there's multiple hands and multiple heads and multiple people helping with it. You don't have to do everything on your own. I think ask questions. Ask as many questions as you want and ask them confidently. I would rather ask the question and get the answer than act like I know what I'm doing and then not. Lean on your resources. If you meet someone in your life, whether it be a man or a woman, but especially, women mentors, it's most likely that they want to help you. They want to hear from you. They want to help your journey. So don't be afraid to create those relationships with other people, especially other women, especially women who might be a little bit older than you. And I think the biggest thing too is just be open to the journey, like follow your interests, even if people are telling you that you're not supposed to be interested in that. There's a group of women who are also interested in that and who will support you. And, so follow your interests. I think the biggest thing that I learned from my personal journey was like I stumbled on this work just by signing up to volunteer because I love soccer and because I care about people. So you never know what might come of just taking those opportunities. And so I think that's my biggest advice, is to use your voice and don't be afraid to lean on others as well.
Yeah. I love everything about what you said. I can relate to so many different aspects of those. And there are also a lot of like similarities to like things that other guests on the podcast have said, other women who kind of share that same perspective.
That's awesome. Yeah, there's no one right path. I think a lot of us are deterred by that, men and women. There's no one right path, but there is your path, and you'll know when it's right. So,
yeah. So I think that is like a perfect end to our podcast today. Thank you so much for being a guest and for all of your insightful answers. And that wraps up our episode for today. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we hope to see you back soon for the next episode of Women Power Impact.